Donald Trump was acquitted in his impeachment trial, but he still faces legal threats. The Wall Street Journal reports the Manhattan DA's office is zeroing in on the financial dealings of the former president's Manhattan properties. Prosecutors are examining loans Trump took out on several properties, including the signature Trump Tower, an Art Deco skyscraper in New York City's financial district, and a hotel and condominium building at Columbus Circle. The investigation is the latest in Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance's probe into the Trump Organization's business dealings. There also still could be investigations in Washington, D.C. into the Capitol riot, and President Trump could face criminal or civil charges there. In Georgia, prosecutors are investigating Trump's efforts to pressure state election officials to overturn that state's vote. Joining us now, former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama and MSNBC legal analyst Joyce Vance. Joyce, it's great to see you. We heard this directly from Mitch McConnell after he voted to acquit. He said, yes, I voted to acquit, but I will leave it to the courts now to deal with all the evidence that we just heard during this impeachment trial. So if you were Donald Trump, where would you be looking first for your greatest exposure and the greatest threat?
Well, Mitch McConnell was pretty quick to kick that can down the road to the Justice Department without recognizing that there were two different purposes served by impeachment in the criminal justice system. But moving past that for the minute, because we have to, the former president faces a real three-ring circus here. Each of these districts and the prosecutions going on poses a real threat to him. In at least some cases, certainly in New York, there appear to be both criminal prospects from the state and from the federal government. So let's talk a little bit about Georgia, Willie, because the statute down there seems tailor-made for the president's conduct. And of course, it's on tape, which is something that prosecutors like to have when they talk to juries. The charge would be something in the area of solicitation of the Georgia Secretary of State to engage in election fraud with the former president, who is very specific. He asked for precisely the number of votes that he would need to win the state of Georgia to be found for him. So it's on tape. You play it to the jury, and then what happens? The charge down there could be a misdemeanor or it could be a felony, depending on how it's charged. If it's a felony, the sentencing is from 1 to 3 years. This would be a first-time offense, a nonviolent offense. So it would be up to the state court judge as to whether he would subject the former president to prison or to some kind of probation. But that looks like a very real prospect. One caveat, the evidence has to be developed in the course of an investigation. Sometimes exculpatory evidence that you don't expect turns up. And this is not a fast process. You have to use a grand jury. You have to use subpoenas. It's not to say that prosecutors are moving slowly, but the process itself is not one that's designed for speed. So we're not looking, I don't think, at something in the next 30 or 60 days, although some of the New York investigations look like they're further along. Certainly the notorious Southern District of New York case involving Michael Cohen, where the former president is individual number one.
Yeah, in the state of Georgia, the president infamously asking to find 11,780 votes, which was one more vote than he would have needed to swing that election in his direction. You mentioned New York. There's just so much swirling there, Joyce. It's almost hard to sift through it all. There's investigation into the Trump Organization. There's investigation into real estate dealings and tax fraud. Where is the biggest problem, as you see it, for former President Trump in New York, in his home city?
You know, the biggest problem is that Cy Vance, the Manhattan District Attorney, has opened a can of worms. And once you start investigating one area of the Trump Organization's work, you don't have to put on blinders. So if in the course of investigation, other instances of potential criminal conduct come to light, then the investigation follows the evidence. It doesn't just focus on the crime that you identify at the outset. So it looks like in Manhattan, where they've been at this for a few years now, they have sunk their teeth into some variety of fraud. And this could be a real problem for the president because of the ability to get paper that backs up these sorts of allegations. But no one should pretend that these cases are easy. They almost always turn on willfulness or intent. And that essentially means that prosecutors have to jump into the mind of a defendant and prove that what they were doing was something that they intended to do, that it wasn't simply a mistake or something that was done inadvertently, that you cheated on your taxes on purpose, not because you got the numbers wrong as the result of an accident. So these cases, again, are not straightforward.
And Jonathan Lemire, there is then, of course, the case in Washington, D.C., where the Attorney General has signaled that that office may look into the president's role into the attack on the Capitol on January 6th and do what the Senate could not do, which is to go after President Trump strongly there.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.